let's get to it, people. Let's get to our game review. Tale of the Tape, Age of Steam is a 2002 release, recently updated with a gorgeous 2019 copy. The designer, there are ways you could put this. This is the first time I'm listing the designer or designers, and it's a bit of a controversy. The designer is Martin Wallace. That is a known fact. The designer might also be John Borer. That is a contested but largely accepted fact. I think the fact of the matter is that the first map, the Rust Belt map, is John Borer's. I believe that the basic rule set is Martin Wallace's. And I believe that rules tweaks and editing and designing work had been done by John Borer. That appears to be, there are 20...
Tom, how many maps there are? About 200 maps
so
of
many
Age of
maps.
Steam?
So many maps. But there are 200-page threads, maybe a little bit of exaggeration, but not that much. Thread after thread after thread about the Martin Wallace, John Borer thing. Suffice it to say that the 2019 release, the new release that is out, does not have Martin Wallace's name anywhere in the book. And it doesn't list a game designer on the box. It doesn't list a game designer in the beginning of the rules. Buried in 8-point type near the end of the rule book, it says game design by John Borer. And yet, when you go to Age of Steam on the Geek, it does not have John Borer's name anywhere. It is game designer Martin Wallace.
And we're back because we just had a 2-hour discussion of the authorship issue of Age of Steam, and we cut it out wisely. And now we are back to the review of Age of Steam.
This is important, okay?
A game that Tom and I have played for over a decade.
The new art is done by Ian O'Toole, and it is put out by Eagle Griffin Games. DMITRY, take it away. Tell us what is Age of Steam and how we do it.
The reason I wanted to review Age of Steam is because it is a great game, and I don't like it, and I never want to play it, and I finally figured out why. It is a game.
It's also one of my absolute favorite games, and I will play it any day, anytime.
I thought Tom would love to talk about it. Ben, it is the newbie, and Ben will give his impressions of what it's like to encounter the game for the first time, which to me is lost in my deep ancient memory.
Wait, Ben, is that true? Have you not played it until very recently?
The first time I ever played Age of Steam was last week.
There you go. See how interesting this is.
I'm clutching pearls.
Age of Steam is not a game. It is a game system.
Yes.
Because there are so many maps, each of which play differently, each of which have slightly different rules. But it is a genius system of games that boils down a train game to laying track and delivering goods, or getting contracts to deliver goods.
Pick up and deliver is essentially what it is, yes.
Yes. But it's really a bidding game where most of the game, most of the winning, most of the strategy, most of the tactics of the game is the different players bidding for turn order, which is extremely important, and also for variable player powers for that round, which is also extremely important, because those variable powers are the only ways to do some things, and also a way to be more efficient at some things that you absolutely have to do. And because it is a bidding game for those things, and because when you lay track, you can also cut people off on the map, it is highly interactive in every aspect of it. There's a single board, and you're always fighting each other for the variable powers, for turn order, and for that track laying. It is incredibly intense. It plays in about 3 hours, sometimes 2.5. It takes about a half hour to teach. It takes years to master, and I don't like it, and I'll tell you exactly why. But Tom,
you're saying that it's mostly a bidding game. Let's break this down. In the game, the ways to win the game are varied. There is bidding well is one factor. There is analyzing the map and placing your routes, building your track well. That's another thing.
But in order to do that, you have to bid.
Let me keep going here.
Sure.
No, Everybody's going to get to build track, whether or not you bid well or bid poorly. So let me keep going. Analyzing the cubes, because here's the deal.
The cubes are the goods that are going to be delivered to
Correct.
the various cities.
And the way it works is the cubes come in 5 colors and the cities come in 5 colors. And what you have to do is a purple cube can only be delivered to a purple city. A blue good can only be delivered to a blue city. And every city or town in between that you pass through, it counts as one step. In order to deliver a long distance, you have to have a powerful train. So you have to increase your locomotive to a longer and longer locomotive, to a higher
You can't
point.
ever deliver only halfway. You have to be able to make that delivery
Correct.
all at once.
But the farther you deliver, the more money that generates. So delivering 6 cities away, six links away, is going to generate 6 income. Delivering 1 city away is going to generate only 1 income.
I'm going to add here
Potentially.
that the game is made out of hexes. The map is made out of hexes. And the track, you connect hexes, much as in an 18xx game and much in many games of this sort.
And very simple. It costs on most maps. It costs 2 to build on a normal hex. It costs 3 to build on a river hex or that sort of thing. 4 in the mountains, and so on and so forth. Very simple rules on that. But back to my point, Dimitri. It's like the bidding is definitely super important in the game, but analyzing the board and building good routes is very important in the game.
Yes.
Analyzing the different variable player powers that you could choose each turn and choosing the right one. Even if you win the bid, you could choose the wrong one. That's important. And the fourth thing, which I think may be almost as important as any of the others, is analyzing the cubes that are on the board and figuring out what I'm going to deliver 2 or 3 turns from now. What are safe cubes for me to deliver? What is the route that I'm building toward that is going to generate a lot of points later in the game? That's another thing. So it's kind of 4 things there.
And the fifth, I would say there's a fifth.
Yes.
Which is knowing the order in which to organize step 1 through 4 in your list there. Because you may see those cubes and you may know your path and you may know you need to build a locomotive. But which order do I do it? Because if you do it in the wrong order and you're not as efficient as possible, it is fully feasible that someone could come out of nowhere and just take those cubes, they could just vulture whatever it was you're planning. They can just do it. They can get in your way. So you have to make sure what is my priority at any given moment. I see someone's in my territory. Is it more important for me to establish a route there, or is it more important for me to take these cubes over here to give me the incomes? That way I'll have that money to go forward to the auction for next round.
And one of the variable player powers that you're bidding for, and you can actually select, is first move. First move is an opportunity to snag one of those cubes that someone else may want to move and make points off of. First build is an opportunity to build track before someone else can build the track, and so on. Those are all very, very important. Ben, what do you think of the game?
I mean, I greatly enjoyed it. I really, really liked it a lot. My background with the quote-unquote system is that, as sort of was slightly previewed with our top 50 there, is that I love Railways of the World. I have played a ton of Railways of the World. I own almost every I may own every single map. I don't know if I've played all the maps, but I absolutely adore that game. And for those of you guys who don't know, Railways of the World was designed by Martin Wallace and started off as Railway Tycoon, which was like the board game version of the video game, and that now it's just called Railways of the World. And it's essentially the same system with some tweaks, but like very important tweaks that do differentiate the 2 games. I won't get into all of it, but basically the headline is that it's more of a streamlined experience. Yeah. But if you have experience with the Railways of the World, it was very easy for me to transition over to Age of Steam, because the central concepts of building tracks, having different variable costs for different terrain, having to have the more powerful locomotive to go across more links, the idea of making deliveries, that's all the same in both games. So for me, Age of Steam, yes, it definitely is more cutthroat, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
Oh, yeah.
But the fundamentals of both games are kind of identical. So it made me just as happy as Railways of the World. But as we go on, I think I have an early impression of which game I like more at this point.
Sure. There are three games. There is Age of Steam, there is Steam, and there is Railways of the World. Those are all three Martin Wallace designs, and they have fairly subtle differences. They're similar games in a lot of ways. Steam essentially was birthed out of when John Bohr decided to lay claim and try and take Age of Steam for himself. Martin Wallace created Steam to differentiate and to have a product that he could make sure wasn't going to be taken by anybody. And Railways of the World, as you said, was a sort of railroad tycoon matched with Age of Steam, and brought those two things together. So for me, of those games, I've played all of them. My favorite is still Age of Steam, is still the granddaddy, the original. And it is for two reasons. One, variability. There are so many more maps for Age of Steam than there is for any other game.
And they're all different. And they're all interesting. They're interesting in different ways.
Some of these maps play incredibly different. My favorite map of all time is Korea. In Korea, you look at the map and you're like, wait, why are all the cities gray? Every single city on the map is gray. And that's because Korea has this interesting rule, which is the color of a city is the color of the cubes on that city. So if you have three different colored cubes on that city, hey, that city is super easy to deliver to because you could deliver cubes of any of those three colors. But what happens when somebody pulls one of the cubes off of that city to deliver it somewhere else? It means that you have a constantly shifting, constantly dynamic system.
That's really interesting.
Oh, it's brutal.
My favorite.
It is so mean.
That's really
my favorite map is the Moon, where one half of it goes dark every turn, and that affects how cities receive goods and whether they can receive goods. So we have.
And the moon is a wraparound as well, because
Yes.
you can build a tile off of the edge of the map, and the edge of the map has all these numbers on them. So when you build off of one edge, you can come in on the other side because the moon is small.
Yeah, it's a map designed by the brilliant game designer of Clinic. I forget his name momentarily.
Alban Viard?
Yes, and I just loved it. So there's so much variability in this system of rules. It really is a system. It's not a single game.
Ted Alspach, who designed Suburbia and many other great games, Bezier Games is his company. He designed many maps for Age of Steam. So there's a lot of really high-powered, amazing designers that have sort of thrown their hat into the Age of Steam ring to come up with great designs.
And
It's like an atelier.
by the way, he has a train game coming out supposedly this fall called Maglev Metro, which is like a futuristic kind of like a subway game, but it's basically a train game, but with maglev trains with transparent tiles. You can have overlapping routes that looks really cool. So it's like that just saying that as it's interesting to see with where also this Age of Steam DNA has now where it's gone to.
Yeah, when people think Ted Alspach these days, they tend to think Suburbia. They tend to think, medium weight, lighter medium weight sort of tiling games. But no, Ted is a hardcore trained gamer as well. So when this game comes out, hopefully it's going to be like some of his amazing Age of Steam maps, and you're really going to get a challenge. Ted has this map, Northern California, that is fascinating. It's got like 5 different things that change the rules of Age of Steam, including a city in the south, like San Jose or something like that, that gets cubes coming off boats, and you can see the cubes that are going to come there. And the thing is that up in the north, Sacramento is a completely white city, and it is the same color as whatever San Jose is on that turn. Whatever cubes are on San Jose, that's what that has up there. And it creates these wonderful dynamics.
One of the interesting things that anybody listening to this should gather from this discussion is that there's an enormous variety within a fairly simple set of rules. And one of the simplicities of the rules has to do with the fact that there's only one resource in the game, and that's money. And there's really only two ways to get money: to issue stock, which hurts you in so many ways because you have to pay dividends, which means you have to you lose money for every bit of stock that you sell. And also it hurts you at the end of the game because when you take the shares that you've sold, you have to subtract them from whatever income that you're generating. And that really affects your final points. But all that track laying, all the locomotive, you don't have to worry about steel. You don't have to worry about wood. You don't have to worry about coal. The only thing you're looking at is the map, the goods, the colors of the goods, the colors of the cities, and the money. And the money in the game is used for two things. It's used for laying track, and it's used to punish your opponents in the bidding. And Tom,
it's also used to pay what you owe. It's also used to pay debts.
Yes,
so,
that's true.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about. I said Martin Wallace is a curmudgeon. I said he is the grouch. I said all these sorts of things. This game is the perfect distillation of his personality in game design form. The rules of Age of Steam specifically state that if you cannot pay what you owe at the end of the round, you go bankrupt and you are out of the game. Nobody plays by that rule. Everybody plays by an emergency shares rule that we now have. Yes, go ahead.
Well, technically, isn't it that if you can't pay what you owe, you reduce your income level one spot for every dollar that you owe, right?
That is exactly.
And that could potentially make you bankrupt.
What it ends up meaning is you are knocked out of the game the round that happens. And almost always you spiral into this death spiral whereby you're probably never getting out of that. People have gone completely bankrupt. Their income has dropped to zero and died horrible deaths in the game.
And
often.
especially now, that is not the game you want to play.
So let's talk about how the game is maybe meaner than your average game.
Well, I think that you look first and foremost at the opening auction. And this, to me, is one of the major differences between it and Railways of the World, which is that the auction that starts every round is an important auction to place in, and it's also a punishing auction because it's the sort of auction where if you win the auction, okay, so you get first pick of these variable powers you talk about. If you come in second, you still have to pay everything that you bid, and if you are in the middle, you have to pay half what you bid, and the only one who can like get out quote unquote unscathed is the one who passes first, who then usually has like nothing too great to pick from at the end. So
and you're
money
always
is super tight, and you wind up spending it for like stuff in the middle
for nothing. And you're always bidding on two things, which is what makes it so difficult and so punishing. You're bidding on your choice of variable power, and it's still up to you to make the right choice. But you're also bidding on turn order. So those two things are so important. Yeah. You may be first in turn order. Somebody may take as a variable power first build or first move and take first place away from you.
Let's talk really quick about the variable powers, just to get them out super quick. The two that are generally the most sought after are locomotive, which you start off with a level 1 locomotive, which can only deliver from one city to a city that is directly connected to it, and there is nothing in between.
And you only earn $1 for that.
You can upgrade your locomotive by not delivering one of the two goods you can deliver each round. The only other way to upgrade your locomotive is to take the locomotive action, which gives you a free upgrade right then and right there. Hugely valuable, hugely sought after, and often the first thing taken. The other one is urbanization, which takes these little circles with these little towns that are on the map.
Hexes?
Circles.
Hexes.
Towns,
The towns
sorry.
are but there
Oh,
are
yes,
circles on the
true.
hexes.
You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, it takes these little circles that are on the map, which represent towns, and urbanizes them, turns them into cities. You put a tile down, and suddenly that is a black city, or a red city, or a blue city, or a yellow city, or a purple city. All of a sudden, you have a new place to deliver goods to, and that radically changes the
And it
calculation
also
on the map.
produces goods.
Yes,
well.
it can also produce goods,
And it can short circuit
later on.
someone's links.
Tremendously. It changes the calculus of the game in major ways. Then there is engineering. Normally you can only build 3 track lengths per turn. Engineering allows you to build a 4th track length. There is first build and first move. That's going to allow you to circumvent the normal turn order in order to be the first person to build track, which can often be a great thing because you can lock people out of certain cities. You can block where they want to go. You can build a link that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to build. And first move, which allows you to grab those super valuable cubes before everyone else in the turn order grabs those cubes. And oftentimes that is going to be a very, very big deal.
Very big deal, because if there are 2 cubes in a city that you want to grab and you are 4th in player order, those 2 cubes might be gone. Other players can take those cubes, snatch them from under your nose, and you won't have anything to deliver, and you won't have any new income that round.
Martin Wallace is a
And
designer.
I'm not saying that DMITRY did that to me in the last game, but I'm not saying that he didn't do that to me either.
Martin Wallace is a designer that is very comfortable with the concept of scarcity. He relies on it. That is a design goal.
And to be completist, there's one more variable player power to
2 more.
choose.
2 more.
Go ahead.
Yes. One is turn order pass, which allows you to, on the next round, allows you to pass and yet stay in the bidding. Otherwise, when you pass, you are out and you become the next to last player after the person who came before you or whatever. And turn order pass can be a huge money-saving thing. Sometimes it'll allow you to be first or second in the choice and turn order for paying nothing.
Yes, because it will force the first person who bid the most sometimes to bid against themselves. And that's painful.
And then there's the redheaded stepchild, which is
Don't talk about me, Tom.
production. Oh, actually, that's an Irish slur. I'm surprised I used it myself. Production allows you to pull cubes out of the bag and add them to the chart that dice will be rolled, and randomly cubes will be placed onto the map. And so you can just somewhat control what cubes are going to go to what cities in the future.
Yeah, because cities
And that helped
do
me actually
produce
this
goods.
last game.
Oh yeah. At the right time, that's a very valuable thing, for sure.
Yeah, I think ultimately, yeah. So when you're doing this auction, you're bidding for all that stuff, but you're also, unless you pass first, you are expending a lot of money. But if you're passing first, you're in a terrible position. It's a very, very unforgiving auction, coupled with a very, very unforgiving fundraising mechanic in the game. The fact that you have to raise all your money, you decide how much money you're going to raise, and you have to raise it before you do anything else. That is interesting, because you're like, how much money am I going to need? But you underestimate something. You make one mistake in calculations, and you would think it's simple math, like, well, how hard is it to add like 3 + 5 in situations? But 2 games in a row, and let me tell you something. I was a math whiz in high school. I miscalculated. I did not do my budget right, and 2 games in a row, I was $1 over. And it's like there is an absolute domino effect if you have to do the emergency share situation. It's really unforgiving having to get all your money at the front, and then and I almost don't even understand why that is. Like, I don't understand maybe thematically why that is. Maybe thematically, like the banks this is when you went and applied for your loan or something. But it is the fact that you have to budget everything, and then you have this auction that comes in like a sledgehammer to disrupt everything. And then on top of that, other players, once you do start playing after the auction, will mess up other things. You have to spend more money to do X, Y, and Z when you're planning to do A, B, and C. That's where the depth is, but it's also where the total unforgiving
Ben, I'm going to jump in.
nastiness is.
I'm going to jump in and say, this is why I don't like this game. even though I realize it's great, because your first move begins with an auction, begins with bidding, where you have to look at the board. You can study the board ahead of time if you know what you're going to play, but basically you're going to have to look at the board. You're going to have to choose and rank 2 or 3 or 4 starting positions that you'll be fine in with. You study the goods, then you have to look 2 or 3 turns in advance to see what goods are coming, to see if you don't deliver anything in the first round, and maybe you can make up for that in the second or third. Then you have to do the same calculation for your other players, for your other partners in the game, 4 or 5 other
I'm not
people.
at that level yet, yeah.
Then you have to look at how many shares they issued and how much money they have.
Dimitri,
And
that's
then,
so
Tom,
okay.
let me finish.
Oh, please, by all means.
Sure. And then you have to bid. And this is your first move. This is the first thing you do in the game before you actually saw how that board plays. Before you have a chance to build any track or move any pieces, remind yourself what the mechanisms of the game are. And all of this is happening in your head. It's an overload.
I think that's
So I'm hearing-
if you ask me.
It's very hard. Because
I'm hearing a 10 out of 10 right now. What's your criticism?
my
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I actually
and the
think,
thing is,
Dimitri,
that's Tom.
I think
that's
you make a very good point.
Go ahead.
You make a very good point. But for me, that's so far that's stuff I actually really like. I like looking at a board and like looking at all the possibilities and like the agony. You know, I famously will constantly be saying, "Oh my God, I'm so stressed," because I like when that decision tree just unfurls so quickly and so rapidly in front of you because you see all the different potential things. So far, I really like that aspect that you're describing.
Yeah, and I don't. And it really comes down to the psychology of the player. You might be a player like me, or you might be a player like Tom or Ben listening to this. For me, a board game is an aid to thinking. I want to see the pieces move. I want to look at the board, and I want that board to reflect my thinking. So I'm not thinking in a vacuum, because you can play chess in your head. You don't need a board. You don't need pieces to play chess, right? You can just picture it. And you and your opponent can just simply state your moves. The reason that chess is played on a board with pieces is because it's better that way. It's a board game that way. And to have such a major decision, such a major first move happen without seeing anything but a map, with seeing no pieces, with not seeing how things move, it's difficult. Now, this is one of those, like Age of Steam is terrific because it does not have individual player boards.
Yes.
Right? It is probably the most complicated game that I can think of that I've played. The most challenging, the most interactive game that does not have your own board for you to look at, to play with, to see where you are. Everything is happening on a common map and on a common rubric where you can see where everybody is on the engine, on the locomotive, and what everybody's income is, and so on. That's great. Yeah. That's economy of design. It makes me miserable. And the problem is that, I don't need to win. I don't want to bust out, and I don't want to play badly.
But here's the thing. So, okay, here we go. So here's things that people have told me. I don't want to play this game again because, okay? I don't want to play this game because what Dimitri just said, the first decision is so important and the amount of information I have to parse is so vast. I totally agree with that. This game throws you into the deep end. It does. It does. I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration. I think that you can look at the map and figure out, okay, there are 5 players in the game and I see 4 perfectly good openings. As long as I am not the first person to pass, I'm probably okay. Right, and I could figure it out from there. There are things like that you can do, but nonetheless, it is you're thrown in. Second thing is I've had people that say I'm in a lot of debt, and this game hits my anxiety point about that. Like hardcore, because the game is all about being in debt constantly. This is one of those games that, depending on the map and depending on the player count, you could have a deficit company until the next to last or last round of the game. You could be still owing money to the bank right up until the very end of the game, and only then do you finally, when you break even in this game,
You celebrate.
I'm not talking about making profit. I'm talking about just, hey, guess what? You don't owe anything this round. And woo!
Yeah.
Party.
Exciting.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I can't believe it. Like you have dug yourself out of a trench. And it feels amazing, but for some people that does not feel amazing. Some people that is horrible. Especially when you add in things like income reduction. This game has score compression. Once you get an income over 10, your income drops by 2 at the end of every round. Once it gets above 20, it drops by 4 every round. So that income that you have been working and squirreling away and outmaneuvering people and stabbing people in the back in order to grab that cube so that they can't get that cube, and just to get that little bit of advantage, all of a sudden you're being pushed back by the market. Pushed back by regulators, pushed back by, depending on whether or not you're an Ayn Rand devotee, who is pushing you back is an open question. But there is a meanness in the system. Jennifer talked about this. She doesn't like games that are being mean to you. This is a game that is being mean to you.
And so exactly. And so let me underscore again. I really had a very fun time. I would totally play this again anytime. Like really fun. I think it's a fun game, and I think it's because the underpinnings, is that the right word? The fundamental system is great. The idea of building a network. First of all, I enjoy games in general where I'm building the game's infrastructure. I love that. I love it in this game, in Railways the World. I like in games like Wildcatters or Great Zimbabwe or Food Chain Magnate. I always think it's really fun when you sort of create an ecosystem within a game, on the underground even. I just love that. That's a concept I think is really, really cool. And that's what this game is all about. You're making all these railroads, and it's fun to see these tracks spread across a map. And you see, and especially in Age of Steam, one thing that I really like about it, more so than Railways the World, is that there's actually a little bit more variety in the train tiles. You can have hairpin turns in this game that you can't have action Railways the World. It drives me nuts. So I like that. I like these routes and the way that people can snake around. Just visually, that's fun. Conceptually, that's fun. I love that. I like the idea of turning these towns into cities. There's a sense of growth. There is for sure in both of the games, Railways the World and this one, there is a narrative to them. You see an empty map, and in the beginning it's like a track here, a track there, and then in the middle, then there start to get that tangle, and then all of a sudden in the third act of the game, you start getting these big deliveries, and it's like, and you sort of never know where someone's going to vulture a good from, and that's all very exciting, and it feels climactic. And I think those elements are so strong. It just powers all these games that came from the DNA of Age of Steam. And so I think that is really great. Where we have differences in terms of the games are in Age of Steam, you have a very intense auction, and on top of that, a very unforgiving loan system or stock issuing the stocks or whatever. That's really unforgiving. And in Railways of the World, one of the big differences, the auction is way more relaxed. It's the basic rules for the auction are basically I bid 1,000, then raise, and whoever wins is just player one, and that's that. You can play that as you go out. It affects turn order.
Sure.
I've actually never played that way with my friends, but it hasn't been an issue.
So you don't mind the left-right binding?
What'd you say?
You don't mind the left-right binding if you don't do that? If you don't do that, the person to the left of the person
because that
who
becomes
wins.
part of the strategy a little bit. Actually, it becomes a different strategy, right? Like,
well, in our game,
I think this person.
In our game, then the strategy would be: I want to sit to the left of whoever the most aggressive bidder is.
Of me.
Yeah,
basically.
But I wouldn't. But if I wouldn't mind playing with the other type of auction. No one at our table ever really cares that much, to be honest.
Gotcha.
But and if you are trying to build something and you run out of money, you can just do a bond right then and there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to. There's no harsh penalties for issuing a bond in the middle of a round and stuff like that. And so one thing, like, I think Age of Steam there's actually a lot of things it does much better than Railways of the World. I think urbanization is way more important in Age of Steam. Like the fact that it's a top tier auction, a variable power in Age of Steam, and then in Railways of the World, it happens, but you sort of like work your way up to that part of the game where it happens because it costs $10,000 to do it.
Right.
So it's interesting. I feel like Age of Steam, I feel like in a way it's almost a better game, but then the one of the most important factors is it the more fun game? And
Yes.
I'm not totally sold that it's the more fun game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally know what you're saying. I'm going to put it in a slightly different way. I have a little bit of an issue with the way games have evolved from 2000 till now has been away from the Martin Wallace school. The Martin Wallace school is a school of hard knocks. It is a game that is you are trying to beat the game system as much as you are trying to beat the other players. And you are beating the other players in order to beat the game system. The game system itself is something that needs to be overcome. That is not the way modern game design is. Modern game design seems to have gone very far the other way into what I call the Scooby Snack model, where, you take this action, and guess what? You get this little bonus for this, right?
The Vital Lacerta thing,
Yes.
where everything you do, you get a benefit
Here you go.
from.
Here's a
and
little
it's very
tile for
rewarding.
you, and here's a little cube that
I
you
wish
get from
all of
doing
life
that.
was like that.
Right?
I just want a little M&M after I do anything in life.
Which seems to come from the modern day microtransaction world that we live in, where everybody realizes, advertising has gotten honed to the point where we know that even tiny little insignificant rewards move consumer behavior, and doing something and getting a little bit benefit gives you just that little dopamine, just that little bit of dopamine to keep you going. I don't like that.
Tom,
I don't
what
like
is
that.
it about you
But Railways of the
personally?
World doesn't have that dopamine. It
what is
doesn't
it
have that. It just doesn't have the...
But it also doesn't have the
evil-
meanness.
Yeah.
Correct.
What is
Bank
it
lender.
about you personally that makes the opposite of that? That makes the meanness and the tightness of Age of Steam personally rewarding for you, so we would know if we're like you.
I liken it to weight training, right? I want to, as I work out in the gym, I want to move up to heavier weights. And what am I moving toward? I'm moving toward heavier stress. I'm moving toward more stress. I'm looking to stress myself more and more and more as my muscles get bigger and stronger and more defined. And for me, in a game, the best game is a game that stresses me in a beautiful way. That pushes me to my limit, that challenges me. And a game like Age of Steam, I love the fact that the challenge is coming from multiple vectors, that the game itself is trying to kill me, that my fellow players are all equally drowning right beside me and would gladly push my head under if only to give them another 3 seconds of air themselves. And that's I know I might be weird. I might be a weirdo, but I think that a lot of people that are into heavier games love
not.
that. There's something amazing about that stress, and something cathartic when you overcome that. I don't feel that in games with Scooby Snacks. I never feel cathartic.
You said drowning,
Yes.
and it makes me feel like Hamlet, or take up arms against a sea of trouble, and by opposing end them. It makes me feel like drowning. It makes me feel like that torture where they drip water.
I'm sorry. I'm talking.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm apologizing because my connection broke out, and I apologize if I was accidentally just like blatantly talking.
No, don't worry
over
about
you
it.
guys.
Don't worry. We've had a couple cutouts, so no big deal.
Sorry, everyone. I love punishing too in certain ways. I love a heavy game. I love rich decision making. We have to consider so many things. I mean, that's why I put ArcLight on. Arkwright. That's why I love the ArcLight theaters. So that's why I put the ArcLight. I put ArcLight on my favorite games when we were doing our list. Because I think you mentioned it last week. You're like, Ben, put Arkwright on there. But like, I love like deep, rich things you have to think about where you're like, oh, I've only got this much money, but I need to do X, Y, and Z. How do I get the most out of my money? I feel like with this game, it's sort of, I kind of feel like it's there's almost like a wagging finger in your face. It's like, okay, you've gone through an entire round, you've agonized, and oh, guess what? You're $1 short of what you were just done, and it's too late to walk anything back. So guess what?
Look, you
now are, you're screwed.
You took emergency shares multiple times this last game. I felt for you. That was bad.
I wasn't upset. I was not sitting there getting frustrated. But I just want to clarify. I was really having a very good time. And even at one point in the game, I had made some critical errors. And on top of that, people capitalized on them. And I found myself in a situation where I was like, I am so out of this. And I was like, I'm not going to throw in the towel. I'm going to find a way. And I did find a way to keep myself very much in it. And we had a technical issue, which caused us from actually getting the final score. But I love that the game, honestly, all of the games in the system, I love that the game allows for that when something happens, you can pivot. It's not like you can still feel like you're an active member of the game. And so that was awesome. That was a really exciting thing for me to build a little route through the mountains and just come up with my own little plan and like feel empowered. But with this game though, I do feel like it's like, okay, you have this budget and you have to stick to this budget. And at the end of the round, oh, sorry, dude, before you can issue new shares, you do owe $1 extra. So you're ruined. Bye. Like, to me, that's like not like I understand the meanness and the competition is fun, like in Food Chain Magnate, but like a moment like that feels more just like that's not like very fun to me.
I understand that. I do understand that.
Yeah.
I will say I would love to play many more games of this with you, Ben. I think that Age of Steam is going to be your bag, especially when you start to see the subtle but amazing variations in the maps and the rules on those maps. There is a map.
Yeah.
There's a map for virtually everyone. Look, I don't know if we have sold copies of Age of Steam today or we have canceled orders of Age of Steam.
This is a great game.
Actually,
You've been warned.
Yeah.
You've been warned. It's a great game. You know who you are.
Yeah.
I will never stop anyone from buying Age of Steam as long as they know what they're getting into.
I actually think, here's what I will say about Rails the World. And I know this is an Age of Steam review, but it's kind of a spectrum of gaming.
Sure.
If you go onto the internet, if you go onto Reddit or onto Board Game Geek, there are tons of threads. Like, should I get Age of Steam? Should I get Steam? Should I get Railways of the World? And what happens is as people start to argue the topic, and this sort of happens with anything in life, like movies especially, some like nuances suddenly become polar thing. Like people just become very like polarized. Like Age of Steam is the heavier, it is the deeper game, and Railways of the World is basically a family game. And it's like, okay, people, if you read that stuff, you're going to get scared away. So everyone needs to relax. Railways of the World is it's more forgiving, but it is I feel like the strategy, it is like in terms of the things that I care about, the strategy is just as deep, and you don't have the variable powers, but that's replaced with a system like a card draft. So getting player order is still massively important in that game. And so if Age of Steam sounds like it might be too punishing for you, you absolutely cannot go wrong with Railways of the World. It is literally like my number 2 game of all time.
Yeah.
So it is an excellent game. And then if you feel like graduating up to Age of Steam, I just feel like there's no reason why not to. And I also want to say, for people who are Age of Steam heads who look down on Railways of the World, Vital Lacerda recently did a map, Railways of Portugal, which was beyond cutthroat. I played it with my friends, and it was so fun. So if you feel like Age of Railways of the World is sort of like kids' gloves or whatever, just know that it's also extremely cutthroat. I think the whole system is great.
I am not I am a huge Age of Steam head. It's in my top 10 games of all time. I think it is a masterpiece. I don't throw that word around lightly. I think it is an absolute masterpiece. And I do not in any way, shape, or form turn my nose up or look down upon Railways of the World. I think Railways of the World is a spiritual successor to Age of Steam. I think it is a great game. And for people that don't want a game to be quite so punch you in the nose and yet still be very tough and very challenging in almost the same ways.
Almost the same. The decisions are still the decisions on how you build your track and when you move stuff and when to upgrade your locomotive are all still there.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it is a great game. I would never turn down a game of Railways of the World. The only time I would even consider turning it down is if it was a choice between that or Age of Steam, just because me personally, I prefer the Granddaddy. I prefer that game. I just think that if I had to compare the two, the only real difference is that it's just a slightly deeper pool, and by slightly I mean a foot or two deeper is all it really is.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are so many more maps with so many different rule sets that play so differently, it's a game system more than a game, as Dimitri said. I really do think that is true.
And on top of that, pretty much everything that's in Age of Steam is in Railways of the World. It's just been kind of remixed a little bit and just by doing that remix, it just creates a more accessible thing. And the last thing I'm going to say about Railways of the World, I mean, last thing I think, who knows? I'll probably say 5 more points. But the one thing that I get out of Railways of the World that, admittedly, I've only played Age of Steam not a lot, so I'm not gonna say it's not an Age of Steam. But one thing that I got from the very first play of Railways of the World, and I always get, is I kind of get a little bit more of a epic feeling when I play the game. I kind of, the art is better, and there's something about it where I feel like, when it's over, I sit and look at it like, wow, look at that. And I also sometimes I feel like, I don't know, there's a vibe where I'm a little bit more immersed thematically in it that I think is really special.
It might be the art. It might be the fact that you can come up for air a little bit long enough to enjoy the theme and not just try to not be in survival mode. Let's talk about the art really quick. The 2019 design was by Ian O'Toole. It's gorgeous. But for some reason, I prefer the original art, which is much more basic, but much more colorful. Maybe that's what it is. There's a certain spare monochromatic thing to Ian O'Toole's design. Listen, it's gorgeous. I open that box up and it looks like a work of art, but for some reason I kind of prefer the original. It might just be that I've lived with it for so long and it brings up so many warm memories. But it is gorgeous. The new box is beautiful.
That's an important point, though.
Yeah, and it comes with
that ultimately sometimes you can't separate yourself from the experiences you've had with the game. And so here I'm talking about Railways of the World. I'm like, I have more fun with Railways of the World, but how can I ever divorce myself of all the amazing fun times I've had with groups of people from 2 to 6 people over the years? And that's ingrained in my heart. And so sometimes you just can't divorce yourself, much like you look at this new art that is on paper, literally on paper is better art, but you have such fondness from that old crappy art, because it reminds you of gives you memories.
Well, listen, guys, we have to move on because we have a Dimitri segment coming up, and those take a while, and we are running along. But listen, that is Age of Steam. As you could hear from our very deep discussion, this is a Game Brain favorite. We are big into it, and whether we end up not liking it like Dimitri, or we're new to it like Ben, or we are an absolute die-hard Steamhead like myself, it is a game that will give you a very strong opinion.
I'll add that Trey and Paul think that Age of Steam is the best tabletop simulator application.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go. That is Age of Steam.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.